Well. Happy Sunday to everybody out there. Again, we're starting off slow, so I'll let everybody know I'm still learning how to use StreamYard. Okay, your boy definitely needs some. How do I say? It needs a little bit of ability, needs a little bit more training. But what I'm going to do today is, we're going to go through some things. And again, like I said, I still live streaming is weird for me. I like to cut things up. You can see how. And again, if anybody who's familiar with my show, they'll know that you get to the point where you're like, yeah, what we're gonna do is wait, what we're gonna do is and it just you cut that up from there. But again, I want to make sure we're clear about this. What we're gonna do today, we got three big topics I want to touch on base today. Okay, we got three topics. First topic is Nick Saban. Nick Saban is whining again, and he's whining about something that's going to be a positive for him. But again, I'll take you through the why of that because oh boy, Nick Saban is man. He freaks out about something, learns the game, and then adapts it, takes it advantage of the situation. So we'll get into that. I also want to talk about the MAC schedule, and again, I made a breakdown of the Mountain West schedule. The MAC schedule came out the day before that, about I want to say May 4th, May 3rd, something like, or March 3rd, March 4th, something like that. And I actually want to talk about the MAC because they are an extremely interesting conference from what they've been, where they've been at, what they're doing, where they're going. They are in an oddly safe spot in the same way that the Big 12 is in an oddly safe spot because nobody's trying to pluck any of the Big 12 teams right now. The MAC is kind of in the same spot there, and they have some options they could take. They were looking at some realignment options earlier, didn't decide to take them. So we'll go ahead and talk about that too. And then finally, I'm gonna push this later on into the show here. I'm gonna make sure that I talk about kind of your questions. I want you guys to get in there. Again, I'm still trying to figure out how to use the screen share. I can't really see people's comments, so I literally left. I talked for 45 minutes, got back on, saw the comments, and I was like, "Oh, there's 20 people here." So hopefully it's right now. Whoever's out there right now, shout yourself out. I appreciate it. But anyways, what I'm going to do right now is we're going to go over a little bit of a short story. So that short story has to deal with our dear friend, Mr. Nick Saban. So Nick Saban is, uh, if he was a coach, he would be the definition of a reactionary. Reactionary person is somebody hears something, oh, can you believe what they're doing out there? Blah, blah, blah. He's the kind of guy that does that kind of stuff. So Nick comes forward and Nick says, hey, I'm really worried about this, spread offenses. Are you sure you want to do this? Are we sure we want to have all these spread offenses out there? And all of college football was like, yeah, we do. Yeah. Nick's worried. He's scared. We got Alabama scared. Well, it turns out, and again, Josh Pate actually has a really good point about this, talking about NIL and transfer portals and things like that. But originally talking about spread offenses, Alabama ran kind of like a two-back, traditional, run down your throat, bludgeon you to death. And all these spread offenses were kind of giving him problems. And again, whenever he faced a good scrambling top flight quarterback, he had issues, Deshaun Watson and other players like that. So with that, he was like, okay, this is where we're at. I'm complaining about this. What if I just do it myself? He did it himself. Eventually, got to the point where now Alabama has a spread offense. Alabama, has 5 receivers all over the field. They recruit the best receivers. They had like 4 number 1 receivers at one point. They're absolutely killing it. So Alabama does that themselves, and they adjust to the game. But remember, he complained about it first, adjusted to it later. Up next, we have the transfer portal. Now, the transfer portal is interesting there because the transfer portal, he's like, are you guys sure we want players to be able to move to and from here and there, wherever we need to go? And everybody's like, yeah, of course we do. Yeah. And they thought that he was worried about that. He was like, no, you don't understand. Alabama, for every 3 and 4 star that we sign or lose, we're going to go into the transfer portal and take a 5. Notably, we have Eli. I believe it's Eli Ricks. I got to confirm that situation really quickly here. I believe it's Eli Ricks. Yeah, Eli Ricks was one where he was at LSU. He entered the portal and he's a 5-star. And Nick's like, okay, I'll have a 3-star who's never going to play for me leave. And then Eli Ricks is going to come and be on my team right away. So he took advantage of it. Again, he was worried about it first, complained about it first, and then adjusted to it later. Now, here is an interesting perspective because he is doing it yet again. Our dear friend Nick Saban is doing it again. He is complaining about a situation where he it's going to benefit him. And then I'm going to get into that really quickly here in a second. Again, like I said, first story that we're going over is Nick complaining about this. Then we'll go into the Mac and then your questions later on. But I'm going to go into the story really quickly here from Sports Illustrated because it highlights kind of what is the situation going on with our dear with our dear friend. Let me just make sure my share screen option works out. So I want to share. Where are we at? Right here. So, our dear friend, Mr. Nick Saban. Actually, let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys. Uh, nope. I don't really know. I'll go ahead and read through it here. So, Nick Saban is not a fan of the three schools the SEC might make Alabama play under the new format, Ross Jellinger reported on March 3rd, 2023. So, Nick Saban has never been accused of backing down from a challenge. For years, the Alabama coaches argued the SEC should play more conference games. Okay, that's fair. Surprising with Nick there because Nick, and again, Alabama is the king of the neutral site game against a dog crap opponent. You play Duke at a neutral site game. Oh, yeah, good for you. Yeah, yeah. Neutral site, neutral site. Oh, yeah, we're going to play it in the SEC or in Atlanta where all of our fans travel to anyway. Yeah, yeah, but neutral site, neutral site. But, anyways, that is one thing that's fair because, again, Alabama, true road game at Texas, not a particularly great Big 12 team, a really good Big 12 team. But he was against the ropes there. And, again, more true away games is going to be a problem for him. But he's for it. Also, more true away games for people at Alabama, which I guarantee he benefits from too. He has agreed to beef up Crimson Tide's non-conference schedule. Starting in 2025, the program will have two Power 5 non-SEC opponents on the schedule each season for a decade. Okay, listen, we all get Alabama. Hey, the tallest trees catch the most wind. You know, Nick Saban, despite the fact he hasn't won the last two national championships, he still probably is up there. Kirby Smart's doing a really good job. Don't get me wrong. But you see the fact they're trying to adjust with the times here because everybody remembers SEC crap week. SEC crap week, for everybody who doesn't know, is when Alabama plays Austin P week 14. I think a big reason why that occurs and why it's so late in the season is because it's hard to schedule some of those games because there's a lot of ACC, SEC games late in the season. Georgia Tech, you see Louisville and Kentucky, you see Clemson, South Carolina. Those games right there take up a lot of those spots. Florida State. So towards the end of the season, it's hard to kind of schedule, but they fill it up with just absolute crap. I mean, no offense to Austin P. You're doing your best. Okay, you're doing your best. But I'd like these adjustments here that they're talking about. And again, like you said, right here, two Power 5 non-SEC opponents on the schedule each season for a decade. He has been the loudest champion of playing more high-profile matchups more often. That, Saban says, isn't changing. However, amid the SEC's internal debate over a future scheduling format, Saban wants more balance and equity than what has been proposed by league administrators in a 9-game model. So, and a big thing behind me and what I've been seeing recently is that a 9-game model is the way to go for a 16-team conference. So the SEC's at 16, the Big Ten is going to be at 16. The way that it works is that you're going to have there's 16 teams. You take a chunk of 4 out. Now it doesn't have to be the same 4, and we'll get to that here in a second. But basically, you have your team. That's 1 out of the 16 out. You have 3 guaranteed opponents you play every single year. Again, this is a point that was an issue in the old Western Athletic Conference. We'll get into that here in a second. You have those 4 games. So you have 1 game, 2 game, 3 game, and then there's 12 remaining teams. So 9-game conference schedule, 3, and then there's 6 and 6. You have the 12 divided by 2. So you play 3 plus 6, and then 3 plus 6. You play everybody, every single team, every 2 years, and you play everywhere every 4. Now, again, that operates on the understanding that you make sure that it flops back and forth between this 1 6 and the other 6. There could be some situations where the 6 kind of rotates by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, something like that. But I would suspect that the reason why the SEC is going towards this 3-6-6 model is because they want to make sure they want Alabama and Georgia to play more often. They want Texas A&M and Georgia to play more often. They want Florida and Texas to play more often. They want those high-profile matchups to happen more often with a 9-game conference schedule and the 3-6-6 model. Everybody, every 2 years, everywhere, every 4. The math works out perfect. I've always been an advocate of playing more conference games, Saban says. But if you play more games, I think you have to get three fixed opponents right. They're giving us Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU. I don't know how they come to that decision. Okay, you're just whining at this point, Nick. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. You're absolutely positively 100% whining. Big reason why is because, dude, those are your guaranteed rivals. So just to make sure everybody knows this. So Tennessee and Auburn have the, I don't know if you're going to call it the benefit, but they play Alabama and Georgia every single year right now as it is. Tennessee is in the SEC East. They play Georgia in conference, and their across division opponent is Alabama. So they play both of them. Same thing with Auburn and Georgia, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. So Auburn is in the West. They play Alabama because they're in the same conference or the same division, and then they play Georgia across cross division opponent. So Alabama plays Tennessee. Auburn is in the West and LSU is in the West. Auburn LSU has always been, I mean, for the last couple of years, Auburn LSU has almost been like a national, like the last 20, 25 years, it's been like a national title game eliminator almost. It is a very, it is a very, very important game, you know? So realistically, these are three teams here, Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU, that Alabama has been playing anyway for the last couple of years. So again, I made sure that he's complaining about his schedule getting easier. We'll get into that in a second here, but he's complaining about playing three teams that he's already played no matter what. Tennessee and Alabama really great rivalry. I know that this last season it was, you know, the first time they won there in like 16 years, something like that. But for the most part, it is the Iron Bowl is the Iron Bowl, and Alabama LSU is a dynamite game. There is so much NFL talent on both of those teams. Again, we'll get more into the article here to see what his perspective and see if he can make it a better argument, because right now he's saying, I don't know how they know that Alabama and Tennessee play, Alabama and Auburn play, and Alabama and LSU play. First of all, it's just self-explanatory when you say it out loud. I do also think, and to be fair, and it's going to get into this in a second here, that if Tennessee hadn't ascended like they had last season, he wouldn't be complaining. Okay, so Tennessee comes out, they get off to a really great start. They're really great. They beat Alabama at home. They tear down the goalpost, take it to the end zone. Blah blah blah. It's so amazing. But before that, it had been 15 years before they lost to Tennessee. So I think that this is a little bit of recency bias. There's no guarantee that Josh Heupel is going to be, at Tennessee for long. I mean, again, things can change, and the only constant in the SEC for the most part is Alabama and Nick Saban. Everything else is just kind of rotates from there. Kirby Smart's got a good spot. Don't get me wrong. But I think he's kind of complaining about something else. And again, I'm going to get into why he could potentially get an easier schedule based off of that, but we'll move on. For a year now, SEC officials have been discussing a divisionless 8 or 9 game conference scheduling format, with Texas and OU moving to the SEC for the Big 12 in 2024. Again, moved up after several, 8-figure settlement. Good for them. In the 8-game format, teams will play one permanent opponent and 7 rotating teams. So if you have 16 and you take 2 out, and then there's 7 and 7, so you play one team and then you play 7 and you play everybody every 2, everywhere every 4. So that's how that would work. Now, I will bring up the old school whack to let you know why that's potentially a situation here. But again, we'll talk about that later on. In the 9-game format, teams will play 3 permanent opponents and 6 rotating. Look at Nick Saban be all mad. In an 8-game format, choosing one opponent for each team is somewhat non-controversial, with most having a single primary rival. OU, Texas. I mean, maybe Texas A&M and Missouri. I don't really know about that, but I know like Alabama, Auburn's pretty easy. Florida, Georgia. South Carolina. That's a weird one. Maybe Kentucky. I don't know, but I know Tennessee and Vanderbilt. I would assume, but Tennessee probably wants Alabama for those bigger profile matchups. But the SEC was expected to choose a team's three opponents based on the primary and secondary rivalries, geographical footprints, and most importantly, balanced parity. The conference is using a 10-year success metric to strike the fairest blend of permanent opponents for each team, Saban says. And here's where it gets into an issue here. I think what Nick is going to be complaining about, and again, we'll read more into this article. This is the first time I've been reading this. But I think he's complaining about this 10-year success metric to strike the fairest blend of permanent opponents, but he's also forgetting about primary and secondary rivalries. I think for the most part, based off of this, it's kind of, I think that the first thing they're probably going off of is primary and secondary rivalries, geographical footprints, and most importantly, balance and parity. Most importantly, balance and parity, I suppose, but I think that's for everybody else. Now, to be fair to Nick Saban, he was hoping to get, why can't we get Vanderbilt in South Carolina or something like that? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But the rivals that they chose, I mean, we'll continue. Sorry, I want to make sure that I make all this, and then I get into what I think he needs to actually be complaining about. Even though not what he actually needs to be complaining about, what he needs to thank them for. That's the better thing. They said they did a 10-year whatever. The coach says, well, some of those years, Tennessee wasn't as good as they've been in the previous 10. But now that they're as good as they used to be before those 10 years. Okay, so again, same thing. Tennessee ascending is causing a little bit of hiccup here. Nick Saban, real crotchety old man, worried about his boys. Why we get Tennessee? All of a sudden they're good now. We get them. We got 3 teams, and 2 of them are in the top 10, and the other is in the top 10 a lot. Look historically over the 25-year history, and the 3 best teams in the East are Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. Look historically at the 25 years, Alabama, LSU, and Auburn are the 3 best teams in the West, so we're playing them all. No. You're playing 1 of the teams in the East, and you're playing 2 of the teams in the West. And remember, you're playing the teams that you've been playing every year for a long, long time. No change on your part. I just continue. The SEC's exact 10-year metric is unclear, but using league records from 2013 to 2022, the top half finishers in winning percentage are Alabama, Georgia, OU, LSU, Florida, Texas, and remember Oklahoma outside of the league, Auburn, Texas A&M. The bottom half is Missouri, Texas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Tennessee and South Carolina, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. Big 12 records were used for Oklahoma and Texas, obviously, yeah. To Saban's point, the Volunteers are on their way up under coach Josh Heupel. Tennessee just completed its best season in 2022 since 2001, finishing 11-2 with a 52-49 win against Alabama in Knoxville. They have struggled over the past decade, and the Vols are historically one of the SEC's elite programs, having won 3rd most league football championships, 13. Alabama proposed other 2 permanent opponents, LSU and Auburn, have won the 4th most and the 6th most SEC titles, 12 and 8. So, and again, I could go over the rest of this article, but I want to make sure we go into this, why I think he's complaining about this. And again, I articulated it before. He complained about spread offenses, realized it wasn't that big of a deal, adopted it himself. He complained about the transfer portal, realized it wasn't that big of a deal, adopted it himself. He's complaining about the opponents that he's getting right now. Once he sees who the rest of his opponents are, I think he's going to adopt it. I don't know, not really adopt it. It's being adopted for him, but he's going to get over it real quick. I'll let you know why. Give me 1 second here. I got to go back and stream and share this other screen. So Vanderbilt's due schedule is 15 SEC games. Everyone should get a shot at Vandy. Hey, listen, easy breezy. Okay, it is what it is. I love it. Love that idea. But I actually want to bring up Vanderbilt here because it's important to make sure we understand what's going on here. So let's go to share screen. Let's go to the SEC football standings. Boom, right there. So this is the SEC as it is this last season. 14 teams. The one that's kind of goofy, if you look at a map, Missouri is pretty far west. But I think that because it's so far north, they just kind of throw it in the east. It's kind of a weird situation. Again, I actually kind of like the fact that it's going towards a divisionless situation. But Alabama's schedule includes LSU, Mississippi State, who has been tough these last couple of years, just 9-4 this last season. Ole Miss, who was a top 10 team for a while there, they kind of had an issue with the SEC play. I'll just say, Arkansas has actually been very, very improved, and then Auburn is capable, and Texas A&M is certainly talented, albeit they are 5-7 with the number 1 recruiting class in the country. But we will move on from there. So they would play these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if it was an 8-game conference schedule, they would play 2 over here. Now, Alabama plays Tennessee and then another. So they would have these guys, and then they'd have 2 out of these 7 every year. Realistically, 1 out of the 6 not named Tennessee. Now, You take out a couple of these. So now they're going to have this top team, this team right here, and Auburn. So Auburn, LSU, and Alabama, and Tennessee. Alabama will play all of them. They are Alabama. And now they're going to substitute out a Mississippi State or an Ole Miss or an Arkansas for potentially a little bit more of a Vanderbilt and a Missouri. I know that South Carolina had a good season this year. They've been a little inconsistent. Kentucky is 7-6, and I know they clawed their way to get to that 7-6 ranking. What I'm basically saying though is, from a conference prestige perspective, Florida minus Urban Meyer has not been as good as you wanted them to be the last couple of years. There have been a couple of things that have been, halfway decent, but they haven't done what they wanted to do. Kentucky actually has done pretty good under Mark Stoops. South Carolina, I think they're on their way up. But for the most part, Missouri has been post Gary Pinkel. I don't know. I mean, Vanderbilt is just, they're really good at school. So what I'm basically saying, though, is that and Josh Pate said this before, every single team in the SEC West at this point, all of them, 100%, are all in on football. Auburn, they're paying 3 coaches right now. It's an insane situation. Texas A&M, they're paying a bunch of recruits not to play for them and to play for them. They're all over the place. Arkansas is all in. Ole Miss is all in. Mississippi State's all in. Alabama, LSU, everybody's all in. I don't know if I can say that about Missouri. I think they want to win. I think that Vanderbilt wants to win. I know Florida wants to win. And Kentucky is getting more and more like they want to win too. What I'm basically saying is that you take a couple of these teams out and you mix in a little bit more of here. It's not going to make their schedule exponentially easier. But I think that he's kind of whining here. He's basically saying, oh, well, LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn, why we get those 3 teams? It's because, dude, those are your rivals. And the teams that we substitute for, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, are going to be Missouri and Vanderbilt. And Texas is coming in. Texas, I think that we'll see what Texas becomes. I think OU is going to be back. I think OU is very well run. OU is a very, very efficient place. I know they had a really bad year this last year. I think OU will be back. Texas, I don't know. I'm not saying they won't, but all I'm saying though is Alabama, at best, it's a wash in terms of their strength of schedule, and potentially could be going down a little bit by taking away the Mississippi State, the Ole Misses, the Arkansas, and the Texas A&Ms every year. I know Texas A&M sucks, but they are very talented. They are very talented. Again, Nick, you complained about NIL. You took advantage of it. You complained about spread offenses. You took advantage of it. You're complaining about your cross-conference scheduling opponents. I'm sure you'll take advantage. I am just betting here that Alabama is going to be in the national title conversation November 1st. I'm telling you right now, that's a bold statement. I think he's going to be just fine. What does it matter? Even a 4-loss SEC champion gets in the playoff. And again, that is true. I think that actually, no, I actually don't think that's true now. I think that is, and again, it actually literally is contractually true when we get to the 12-team playoff. But I don't think that's true. And at 12, a 4-loss SEC team, no, if everybody goes 8-4, one team goes 9-3 and they lose, I'm not sold on that. If that were true, then a 1-loss non-Big 12 champ TCU would not have gotten in over an Alabama team that this last season. I think that Alabama probably was the better team. I mean, everybody complains about TCU and the CFP this last year, but Michigan's not complaining. Okay, Michigan is not complaining. They had some issues with them. But yeah, Nick is absolutely just whining his butt off. I mean, they're going to be fine. They'll move on. The SEC is still going to be solid. Oklahoma and Texas coming in. It's going to be really interesting there. And again, I would not be surprised, to Aloha Nate's point, if we're talking about the SEC. If we have 12 opponents, we have the 6 conference champions plus the highest rated it's just basically the 6 conference champions. It doesn't matter where they come from. Actually, that's the cool thing about the language they wrote it in. So you have those 6, and then you have 6 others. I would not be surprised if they got 3 to 4 of those slots. 3 potentially. But if down years for other conferences, 4. But yeah, I would not be surprised if SEC has 4 teams in there. But again, that's just me. But yeah, SEC still doing solid. Okay, so that was the situation here. And actually, let me go ahead and get rid of a couple of my slides here. I'm going to bring up. We're going to talk about. We're talking about everybody's favorite thing: conference realignment, and the one conference that nobody's pulling from. Now, yeah, not the Big 12. The Big 12 actually got pulled from. Not the ACC. Now the ACC is safe only because they have this crazy grant of rights and deal and 20 blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. There's one conference that is not named in the FBS football when it comes to conference realignment. It's the least. I should say this. Excuse me. It is the least cited one that I want to talk about. And that conference is the MAC conference, baby. All right, one sec. We're going to go to preset, share screen, and we are going to go to the MAC right here. Boom. So it's really interesting, and we're actually going to go over this here in a second. So the Sunbelt Conference USA and the American are kind of in a menagerie, a weird situation where they're kind of in the Big 12 territory, they're kind of in ACC territory, and they're kind of in SEC territory. I will let you know, though, that with the addition of USC and UCLA to the Big 10, someone's territory has kind of gone out the window. But for the most part, it's still mostly there. That's the only outlier for the most part. BYU in the Big 12 is a little bit. West Virginia in the Big 12 is a little bit too, although they are getting Cincinnati out there. But for the most part, there's kind of some matchup, especially between the Big 10 and the MAC are just right smack dab on top of each other. And the Mountain West and the Pac-12, they are just right smack dab in the middle of each other. You could maybe argue Conference USA with the fact that they've got, Sam Houston State and they've got UTEP, they've got New Mexico State. They might be more Big 12 territory, but we're splitting hairs on that one. I don't want to get into that. I want to talk about this. So I went over the Mountain West schedule this last week. It's really cool to kind of see that, what was going on with the Mountain West. There's actually a lot of, Mountain West versus Pac-12 action. Most of it at the Pac-12 teams, some at the Mountain West teams. Really interesting to see that. But for the most part, we check out some of these games here. So we see what we got. We got Akron, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Kent State, Miami, Ohio. We got Ball State, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Northern Illinois, Toledo, and Western Michigan. So gray is going to be an away game and white is going to be a home game. So we'll see here. I mean, what do we got here? I have no idea what the logo is for that. Liberty visits Buffalo. Iowa State visits Ohio. So that's an interesting one. There's an FBS team there. We've got that's a Mount West team, but we have San Jose State visiting Toledo. I actually pointed them out. San Jose State is my sleeper Mountain West team. Do I think they're going to win the league? No. Would I be surprised if they did? Yes. But I still think you need to look out for them. Again, I just hedged that like 6 different ways. But you see what's going on here. So for the most part, the MAC kind of accepts what it is. So come down here. You'll see the rest of the schedule. There are some games down here, but October 31st to November, these last 4 weeks is what's called MACtion. MACtion is Tuesday and Wednesday football games. Nobody plays on Tuesday and Wednesday. As you can see here, October 28th, the week before that, there's a bunch of bye weeks because you wouldn't want to play on a Saturday and then play on that next Tuesday. So there's a lot of bye weeks in between here for a lot of those teams. And then they switch October 31st to November 1st. Lots and lots and lots of games here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's what the Max does. That's what they have to do to be surprising. Tuesday night action is super, super popular when it comes to the bettors. Trust me, the bettors love Tuesday night action. Hey, get online. Yeah, get on my Bovada account. We put 25 on Eastern Michigan. Things like that. You see what's going on here with these guys in the schedule. Again, there's a couple of things here. Kent State visits, Fresno State. I see my boys. There's some big teams here. We got Michigan, Kentucky, Indiana, Georgia Tech. Well, we got Arkansas, UCF, Big 12 UCF. Miami, Ohio is playing Miami University. San Diego State during 0 week. Kentucky, Georgia, Ball State. I mean, they're going to get some fat paydays for those games. Notre Dame. We've got Minnesota. We have Jacksonville State down here. Going to be switching over to D1. We got Iowa, Syracuse, Illinois, Boston College, Nebraska. So there's lots and lots of payout games for the MAC. The MAC kind of accepts what it is. Okay. For the most part, and again, we're going to go to the FBS map here to see what it is because the MAC is not being named in conference realignment because there's such a discrepancy between it and the Big 12, it and the Big 10, It's the only teams that can really take them. There's not very many teams that would. You could maybe argue that the AAC would come because the AAC is dude. Mike Oresco at the AAC is aggressive, dude. He is aggressive. But thinking about the MAC, they're kind of set with where they work. In fact, the only teams they were thinking about adding were a couple of teams in Conference USA when Conference USA was getting pillaged. We'll get into that article real quick. So 1 second here. And again, hold on a second. Sorry, everybody. I am not as swift with the adjusting of this. So go to my share screen. And we're going to go to this one right here. Does everybody remember this? Of course you guys do. Everybody here is MAC fans. So last November, not this previous November, but the one before that, Mid-Tennessee State and Western Kentucky to remain in Conference USA after considering joining the MAC. Mid-Tennessee and Western Kentucky will remain in the Conference USA after considering an exit to the Mid-American Conference. MTSU President Sidney McPhee said in a statement that Conference USA's recent additions of Jacksonville State in Alabama, Liberty in Virginia, New Mexico State, and Southern New Mexico, and Sam Houston State will help stabilize the league. That is true. But you look at this here, Conference USA, remember here, when the Big 12 took, because crap runs downhill, Texas, Oklahoma, go from the SEC took them from the Big 12. Big 12 took BYU from the independent ranks, and then UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston from the American. And then the American goes over to lowly Conference USA, no offense, Conference USA. And they take Charlotte, FAU, North Texas, Rice, UAB, and UT San Antonio. And then the Marshall, and then Marshall, Southern Miss, and ODU headed from Conference USA to the Sun Belt. So that's 9 members leave the conference, which that is insane. Just 9 people leave the conference. They were left with 5. They ultimately made it work. They added 4 teams. They added Jacksonville State, Liberty, New Mexico State, and Sam Houston, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're also adding Kennesaw State outside of Atlanta. You think about that conference, or the Americans' goal, their strategy here was Big Ten-ish. Not saying they're on the Big Ten, but it's a Big Ten strategy, which is Charlotte, Miami, Dallas, Houston, Birmingham, San Antonio. That's what they were going for there. But with that, Western Kentucky, Mid-Tennessee State, they're kind of thinking, what do we want to do here? What's going on? Are we that safe? And the MAC, it's very interesting. I mean, Mid-Tennessee State was in the Sun Belt there. I thought they were in the MAC, excuse me. They were in the Sun Belt for a little bit. They went over to Conference USA. But, man, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen here. They were considering an exit to the Mid-American Conference. I think the MAC, do I think they were reaching out? I know there are rules around that, but I do know that, man, the MAC just seems like they're like, yeah, dude, Mid-Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, you guys want to join? No? All right, dude, do your thing, man. Good luck. That's just what the vibe that I get from the MAC. We're also going to go back here and share one more screen. 1 second, everybody. Stick with me. Stick with me. And then right there. So I proposed this before. I proposed a couple teams. Now we'll talk about that here in a second. But you see the brown. So we've got the light blue is going to be Mountain West and Sun Belt. We've got this kind of weird green is going to be independent. That's Notre Dame. Notre Dame is not coming to the MAC. I apologize. Conference USA is going to be these white teams. Some of these are old. As an example, like up here, it has UConn in the American. That's not true. So this is an older map, but it actually gives us a rough layout of what's going on here. Also has the ACC is in that green. We're going to get rid of the ACC. Sorry, the ACC it's not relevant. And then the American, I don't think any of the American teams are coming over, so we're going to get rid of them too. So we've got Conference USA, Independence, MAC, and Mount West and Sun Belt. Now, go over here. This is Army. Army's staying independent. It's not going to happen. Okay. We have Navy's down here, and it's not going to happen. Okay. We have UMass out here. It was in the MAC. It's not going to happen. So we saw Mid-Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, and Mid-Tennessee State right here. These two. So those two teams right there. So this little pocket was considering joining this pocket. We also saw that this team right here, Marshall, went over to join these pink teams. They went to join Appalachian State, so they're in the pink now. So the white was having some issues because the white almost lost these two up to these brown section here. Now, if I am the MAC, and again, I had mentioned this before about the Mountain West because there's a couple of teams I think the strategy would be a little bit different. I said before that the Mountain West, these are the light blue teams out here, the Mountain West should consider adding in North Dakota, North Dakota State, South Dakota State. Now, the problem with that, and I'm going to zoom in here a little bit here. For those of you who don't know, this is the map of this is North Dakota, this is South Dakota. Those teams are all along this line. So this is the eastern edge of those states. They're all central time zone. So they're still pretty far from these teams here. Now, remember, the Mountain West is pretty spread out anyway. That's just the way it works out west. There's less people. There's more space. You got to move farther. I considered North Dakota State, South Dakota State to come out here, almost be an eastern wing of the Mountain West if they were to lose San Diego State. And again, that's just a hypothetical at this point in terms of adding those teams. Now, I think that North Dakota State and South Dakota State, which are the two most consistent members of the 4 Dakota schools, I think that they would be a reasonable option for the MAC. However, I don't think I would add North Dakota, and I don't think I would add South Dakota. And I know all those North Dakota fans, South Dakota fans, they'll get mad at me. But you come over here and see this. We're going to zoom in just a little bit more. So it's right over here. So we look at Fargo, for this is where North Dakota State's at, and then I believe South Dakota State is down here. So those two teams. You would also add, potentially, Northern Iowa, a very, very strong team out here in that section. Very, very strong. A little regional partner here. So 1, 2, and then 3. And then I would add a 4th team just for the sake of adding a 4th team. Now, all these Ohio teams that have, our trips are so short. Why would you do that to us? This is a terrible idea. What if we did something else? North Dakota State, South Dakota State, a little far. They would extend your trips. Northern Iowa would extend your trips a little bit. You know, it's over here next to Northern Illinois. What if they added Youngstown State? Youngstown State is in Ohio. It would actually shorten a lot of trips for a lot of these teams here. You would have maybe North Dakota State. You'd go to one and the other one would visit you. So you only have one really long trip. You'd get national championship powers in your conference. And you also have the ability to actually potentially shorten some of your trips. So Buffalo could be coming to them rather than going to Northern Iowa or North Dakota State. I actually think, and again, they're in a weird spot. Geography is goofy. Geography is very important for those lower level conferences. But man, I know that like if you add those Dakotas, you have to add a package to make it worthwhile, especially lower level teams. Again, if we were talking USC and UCLA money, USC and UCLA, they could play in Brazil if they need to. It would be a little annoying. It'd be fine, but they make so much money, they'd be fine. These smaller conference teams have to find ways to integrate them. Again, I mentioned before, Conference USA is adding Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State is not a national power. They're not a draw. People aren't watching them. However, in Atlanta, already in that Sun Belt region, I know it's the Sun Belt, just in the region in general, the Mason-Dixon region in general. Atlanta is a big airport, flies directly to everywhere in the league, would be really easy to integrate them. Now, North Dakota State would be hard to integrate. You add Northern Iowa and you add another Ohio team and you potentially shorten some of those trips up. I like it as an option, but again, I'm just thinking I want good teams that take football seriously, go as far as they can. I'm a Boise State fan. That's what we do. We do our best. But that's just what I'm at right there. I know that the MAC right there, do I think they're going to do this? No. I put it at like a 5% chance because the MAC is just the most chill conference. The MAC plays games on Tuesday. Hey, man, you guys want to add these teams? No. All right, cool. It's whatever, man. You do your thing. Just the MAC just seems like your friend who's just like never bothers anybody, never does anything. He's just content because Big Ten's not coming for any of these teams. The only team that they would potentially come for is Buffalo because they're an AAU institution. But Buffalo would have to literally put about $300 to $400 million into their football complex, their stadium, and their coaching staff in order to actually start to draw people like that. Again, remember here, Rice, Tulane, Buffalo, and then you think about like Boise State, UNLV, and Fresno State and Memphis. So those two groups right there. Boise State, Memphis, UNLV, and Fresno State are doing their best to build up their academics. Their football is their sports. They take their sports very seriously, but they need to build their academics. But building up your athletics, a couple checks here and there, because the academics moves a lot slower than the athletics. So if Buffalo took it serious, if Rice took it serious, if Tulane took it really serious, now Tulane did go and have a really good year this year. The year before they were 2-10. We weren't going to mention that. But I'm telling you, Buffalo is one that could be potentially, if they were ever to really, really buy into that, But you have to buy in that from the top. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but it's really interesting to look at there. Again, the MAC was talking about 18, about what was that? It's about 18 months ago. About 18 months ago, they were talking about Western Kentucky and Mid Tennessee State joining the league, but they're like, nah, we're good. And I suspect that we'll probably get more of that in the future. Conference realignment is constant, always changes, but this will probably be one of the last ones to change. Just my opinion. Lohande, what's up, man? I think Western Kentucky wanted to go. Mid Tennessee State did not. Max said it was a package deal, so that's why it didn't happen. And again, yeah, I think that's where it's at. And if you think about that, though, so Western Kentucky is a little bit farther north, not much farther north, but a little bit farther north. So they were like, yeah, we could do this. And Mid Tennessee State's like, well, no, we got a good thing. I don't really, let's not rock the boat. Personally, I would have left because I'm over here. I'm thinking, okay, so we have these 5 teams. We're going to add a bunch of teams. We're adding 3 teams from the FCS ranks and moving them up. We added another team. So where UTEP, if you look at a map, UTEP is way far away from everybody else. We added another road trip. Now it's way far away from everybody else. So like New Mexico State being and joining there, it's another road trip you'd have to make. But I will say that having those teams out there, it's going to be really easy to like, especially for the smaller sports. You go out to UTEP on Friday and you play New Mexico State on Saturday. It's going to be really easy to do that. But man, I mean, it's just it's like you said before. They didn't want to join. One of them did. The northern one did. The southern one didn't because the league. The northern one wanted to join the northern league. The southern one wanted to stay in the southern league. Just kind of what happened there. But yeah, that is what's going on. So I got over my 2 articles there. I have my fettuccine Alfredo that's waiting for me. So I'll put it on my fans right now. I'll put it on my fans. Aloha, Nate. You're always active. I really appreciate it here. But what questions you guys have right now in college football? Let me know, and I'll kind of because I'll tell you what, I need some ideas here. I have some ideas. I want you guys all to get in the chat right now. Get in the chat right now or type out your questions because I have some ideas for what I want to talk about. But if you have things, you let me know. You guys are my fans. I gotta let my fans have what they want, man. Now, here's what I've been thinking. Where is it at? Let's go ahead and share. Here we go. All right. Let me stop this thingy right here. So 2023 spring football game schedule. I will let everybody know, whoever is a Boise State fan, I will be at the Boise State spring game. I will be filming and posting it that next day. Also got some commercials. I got sponsors. There's things happening for Jake Posey in Master Football here. So I was able to check this out. So we have the list of the spring games here. Now, this is what I was unconfirmed was Hawaii literally would practice for less than 30 days and have their spring. I actually wasn't able to confirm whether or not they had their spring game or Bowling Green. I couldn't find that. It says Georgia State's is announced for March 9th. Is their spring football game. So that's crazy. So that's coming up here. We have New Mexico on March 6th. I actually think that a lot of these aren't. I think the ones that at the times are probably going to happen. But the ones that don't, I'm not sure. I think there are a lot of TBDs. We see here, though, April 8th, there's a lot of teams. Toledo, Auburn, UTEP. April 6th is a UTEP, excuse me. Temple, April 8th. Houston, April 7th. We got Tulane, March 25th. Vandy, Mizzou, ULM, NC State, Boise State, April 8th. I will be there. Don't you worry. I will be there. We see a lot on April 15th. Indiana, USC, Jacksonville State. We have Jacksonville State's on the 13th, excuse me. We have April 15th for North Carolina. BYU is the 31st. Cincinnati's the 15th. So there's a lot of these that are coming up that I'm going to be doing a review of. Now, the cool thing about this is once April 8th to 15th happens, I'm going to have content for a couple of weeks there. And I'll let you know it kind of sucks because that's right around NFL draft time. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably do some NFL draft stuff closer to there because I just love talking the draft. And then after that, it will be a lot of spring game review, what I liked, what I didn't, so on and so forth. I'll pick some teams out. Whoever you guys want me to review, let me know. But I do know that, again, April's coming up. So I'll let you guys know I'm also going to be gone this next week. I'll have a couple videos posted, some shorts, things like that. But there's a lot coming down here. Stanford on the 22nd, Miami, Ohio on the 22nd. There's a couple that haven't been ranked. So if you come all the way down here, Washington State, Notre Dame, Texas State. We have May 6th to San Jose State. For some reason, it starts April 4th. Dang. And then we have Alabama on April 22nd. We have Kent State April 28th. Rutgers April 29th. Oregon April 29th. Oregon probably just needs to do that so it's not raining so dang much. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of spring game reviews. I'm probably going to do this. It will probably be broken out longer and longer amounts of time because, again, April 28th, April 29th, that's right on NFL draft time. There's lots of stuff I can do there. What teams I really like, what teams I didn't, what conferences to look out for, and so on and so forth. But this is going to be fun. There's a lot of stuff here to be look out for. That's what I'm thinking about. Now, what you guys want, remember, you guys are the fans, okay? You guys let me know what you guys want. Instead of glorified practice, spring game should be against FCS. Hey, dude, aloha Nate, let's make the call, okay? I love it. I love it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see almost like because I know that happens in some instances. So as an example, so Air Force does not have any freshmen on roster for the most part. It's kind of weird. Air Force doesn't have any freshmen on roster. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But the reason why is because all the freshmen, they have a freshman team. And the freshman team plays local schools here and there, little smaller schools, and they don't have a full schedule, but that's what they do. Now, I mean, will we have like a spring football, USFL kind of situation for college? I don't know. That'd be fun. But yeah, what if as Youngstown State and Ohio played Ohio State? Ugh, man, that'd be a big discrepancy there. But yeah, I know that spring games coming up. I'm going to be making sure I'm going to be reviewing a lot of them. You guys let me know which ones you guys want me to review, and I'll go after it. But first of all, easy breezy, aloha Nate. Appreciate the comments. I am going to wrap up here. I'm probably going to have a video, put it out for tomorrow, and then I'll have another video for the next day. I'll be a little light on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday because I'll just be gone. But I'll have a video drop tomorrow. I'll have a video drop on Monday or Tuesday, and then I'll get back to it. I'll stream next Sunday. We'll be good. I'll be Vegased out. I'll be tired. I'll have no money, so I'll have plenty of opportunity to talk football. But guys, appreciate it. So for me, that is it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.